Welcome home, Mark.
Hello there. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Mark Bell's Power Project. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is a project, and because it's a project, I need you to pass it on. If you like this, if you like this format, if you like what we're doing, if you like all the different people that we're chatting with, and you like seeing me up here pounding the desk and talking to you and all that stuff, let other people know. Go on iTunes, give us a review. We don't ask for anything. There's no commercials here. We're not trying to advertise anything. We are just sharing information. And part of the Power Project and part of the mission of Super Training Gym and Slingshot is to make the world a better place to lift and to try to enhance your lives, try to add to your lives every single day. When you start to kind of think about some of these things where sometimes maybe you feel too much pressure, have too much anxiety about how it is it's going to play out that you are going to get better. You just take a deep breath and just realize it's step by step. And I know it sounds so simple, but if there's a side step, if there's a step back, if there's several steps back, it doesn't matter as long as you get back on track. Now, that could be on a day-to-day basis. That can be on a weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis. I mean, look, people have years that are horrible. People will have a year where they lose a spouse. They fall into a drug or alcohol addiction. They're off the map for a few years, but sometimes you see these people come back. People are really, really resilient. My brother's resilient in that way. We ended up with a great conversation talking to Mike O'Hearn when we were down in Los Angeles. I stayed in Malibu for the month, just returned 2 days ago, and the conversations that I had down there and the people that I met and the people that I hung out with inspired and motivated me well beyond anything I was doing previously, which I feel like I was a pretty motivated person to begin with, but now things are really set on fire. What came out of the conversation with O'Hearn was that he met my brother in 1993. He met me in about 96, 97. We've known this guy forever. Mike O'Hearn does not have missteps. Mike O'Hearn does not make mistakes. He doesn't miss meals. He doesn't trade his time for training. He doesn't make hardly any compromises. The only compromise a guy might make may be for his significant other, Mona. He may break a little bit of some of his normal habits, and it's possible that they go out for something to eat on that particular day. Other than that, the guy lives and breathes for weight training. He loves it. It's what he chose to do. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that in 1993, my brother was a much, much different person. In 1997, 98, when I met Mike O'Hearn, I was a much different person. Mike O'Hearn has been a similar kind of person this entire time because he has stuck with it. And he's continued to make progress. I mean, people always think that O'Hearn's just, shredded 24/7. Well, he is jacked and he is shredded. He's got a lot of muscle on him. But as shredded as you see him for some of his guest appearances and stuff, he's not always that shredded. He has to still work for that. He still has to work for it very hard. And he's made a lot of progress over the years. I remember, chatting with him years ago, and he was 270, 280, 290. He was never fat. He never slipped up. It wasn't like he decided to go off his plan. He stayed on his plan the whole time. And he would continue to get better and better and better. But that's how he's able to lift all those weights. He's one of the strongest guys to ever walk through the doors of Gold's Gym. And he's one of the strongest guys from any era at Gold's Gym. Today he worked out with the mountain. You guys are going to see footage of that. We filmed that for Mike, Chris Griffin, our sharpshooter down in Los Angeles. He ended up getting shots of that. And you're going to see that, and that's going to be on O'Hearn's YouTube video. But O'Hearn did 21 reps with 315 pounds. And the mountain, the world's strongest man, who weighs in over at 400 pounds, he did, that's a great picture. And he did 40 O'Hearn did 21 reps, and the Mountain did 25 reps, reverse grip bench with 315. As I go back to the story of my brother and I, my brother was a USC film student. He was trying to figure out which direction he was going to go with his life. His life wavered to and from film and to and from the gym. He'd sometimes train his ass off. He sometimes wouldn't. He'd sometimes end up getting drunk. He'd sometimes end up blacking out. He later realized, it took many years to realize, that he was an alcoholic and that he really truly had some problems. My brother Mad Dog's death had a different impact on him than it did on me. Part of the reason for that, I believe, is that I have my wife Andy and I have my family, so I have to still press forward. And also, Chris was just closer with Mike than I was. That's just the way it is. Closer in age and closer mentally, physically, emotionally, every way you can think of. My brother has had a lot of ups and downs. Coming out of film school, it seemed like things were going to be pretty promising. He was very creative. He was very smart. He still is very creative. Still is very smart. It looked like he was just going to turn this USC film school thing into a job somehow. At the time, it was really hard to figure out how to get a job in Hollywood. You had to either write a script or previously like direct or produce a movie. It was very difficult to figure out. And, it probably really just took hard work, dedication, and a lot of consistency. But my brother didn't understand some of that at that time, I don't think. He might have been too young. He was always trying to lift. He was always trying to be in better shape. But his will, his firepower, his ability to channel it and to have it carry over into his daily life was not there. And so he would waver a lot. His diet would go up, his diet would go down, his weight would go up, his weight would go down. He'd be fat for 2 months, he'd be thinner for 2 months, and so on. He was involved in a lot of powerlifting. He was a competitive powerlifter, and he was lifting some really big weights. After a while, his body couldn't hold up anymore, and a lot of it probably had to do with the diet at the time. He did not have the knowledge to have the proper diet, and as a result, he started to get fatter. As a result, his hips started to wear down. He was born with degenerative hips, and as many of you know, he's had double hip surgery, so he has 2 replaced hips on his body, and multiple surgeries to go along with that, and multiple surgeries on his knees from when he was a kid. He just was maybe dealt a bad hand, maybe dealt a different hand than what I was dealt. As he progressed over the years, as 1993 turned into 2003 and 2013 and now 2018, my brother, the entire time, he was trying, but he couldn't figure out what the quote-unquote secret was. And the secret is that if you are consistent over a long period of time, you will be rewarded. Now, here's where the reward comes in for my brother, because since probably 1989 or 1988, he's been training. And even though he got fat, and even though he went through a bunch of different things, alcoholism, pills, you name it, he got addicted to all kinds of different things, nearly died a couple times. He was really in a bad spot. But for the majority of that, he still always went to the gym. He held on long enough to where now in 2018, if you saw him, if you met him at Gold's Gym, first of all, you'd never have any idea that he was fat. But secondly, he would tell you, he'd look you in the face and he'd say, I'm in the best shape of my life. Same thing with me. From that time I met Michael Hearn in 1997, I was probably 19 or 20 years old. I'm now 41. I'm going to be 42 in December. I can look you right in the face and tell you I'm in the best shape of my life. My point to all this is, it doesn't matter If you're a maniac like Michael Hearn, who is completely obsessed with training, completely obsessed with being the strongest and the best, to the point where after every single workout, he rushes home, has his post workout shake, relaxes, gets a massage, takes a nap. The whole day is devoted towards recovery. The guy never misses a meal. When I say never misses a meal, he's been eating 6 to 7 meals a day from the time he was like about 11 or 12 years old, like something crazy like that, because he started lifting at like 9 years old. And he somehow found out about bodybuilding at a very young age. But the point to this whole entire goddamn long-winded message is, if you just hold on, you can still persevere. It might be a long road. It can be a shorter road if you work on trying to condense it, and you work on focus. If you focus in on something, you hone in on something, you'll get somewhere faster than if you don't. And that's part of the reason why I've always been able to be ahead of my brother in terms of physique and in terms of strength, is I learned a lot from him as a kid, and so I had accelerated learning when it came to lifting. On top of that, I started super training gym, and that caused a lot of accelerated learning. I got around guys like Jesse Burdick and Stan Efferding and Ed Cohn, and more recently Jay Cutler, and all these people. All these people are lifting up everything that I do, and it's making things easier for me. It's forcing me to learn faster. When I talked to Ron Penna, the former CEO of Quest Nutrition, and when I talk with some of these monsters that I know, Jason Khalipa, when I talk to these guys, I have no choice but to feel their enthusiasm. I have no choice but to get better. I have no choice but to continue to learn and absorb all these things these guys are throwing down. But what I want you to understand is, whether it's business, whether it's a relationship, or whether it's your diet, your lifting, whatever it is, if you can stick with it, you're always in it. If you can just stay with it, you can always still be in it. So my brother, as far off as he went, he can still look someone in the eye and say, I'm in the best shape of my life. I mentioned I can say the same. I didn't go through the same trials and tribulations as he did, but still, it was a really long fucking time ago that we met O'Hearn, right? O'Hearn can look somebody in the face, and he might have to lean up a little bit because he's been leaner in the past. But for the most part, he can say he's in the best shape, best condition of his life. He may not be the leanest he's ever been, but he's certainly at a really amazing level of strength, and he's certainly at a really amazing level of how much muscle mass the guy has and how lean he is. This stuff all takes a long time. I want you guys to get rid of this thought process. I want you guys to stop saying, I started out the day with pancakes, so today's kind of a wash. I'm just not, I'm not going to go to the gym. And, actually today's Saturday. I don't really love going to the gym on Sunday, so Sunday I'm going to spend time with my kids on Sunday, and maybe I don't want to eat good on that day because we're going to go to the movie theater, and then you look at your calendar and you're like, oh my God, Monday's our anniversary. You can't really start the diet then. I want you guys to stop. Just fucking stop doing that. Do your absolute best as much as you possibly can to avoid falling into these pitfalls. Avoid the negative talk. Avoid the self-doubt. You have to try to drown out that self-doubt over a long period of time. I still do it. I still find myself to this day talking myself out of stuff. And if I'm not on a set schedule, if I don't start to have a routine, then the door is open. The door is cracked open. And the door is cracked open. It's an opportunity for me to give up on myself. What happens in a relationship if that door starts to get cracked open, and you start to put out the vibe that maybe you're maybe you're not as happily married as everybody thought. What starts to happen to these things, right? What starts to happen to your relationships? What starts to happen with your nutrition? What starts to happen with the thoughts that are going on in your head? The thoughts that we have are the driving force behind everything that we do. And so when your thoughts start to get staggered and they start to go away from the goal that you talked about, you just told everybody that you want to lose weight. You told your buddy, "Hey man, I just, you know what? I want to bench 2 plates. I really do. I want to feel what 225 feels like." But then are your actions matching up to what you just said, or are you failing yourself? Because if you're failing yourself, you make yourself feel like shit. You make yourself feel bad. And I see it over and over again. And where I see it probably the most is I probably see it the most when it comes to weight loss, because they'll get so mad at themselves and they'll be like, they don't really realize they're insulting their own body. They're insulting the human body. When you're ingesting like cake and all this junk food and stuff, we all love it, and we should all embrace eating junk food. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying that a lot of times that when we allow these things into our lives, we then get frustrated with ourselves because that's not the conversation that we had. We are going to get leaner. We are going to be in better shape. We are going to be stronger. We are going to start doing cardio. We're going to start doing all these things. You end up with this giant list of shit that you think you have to do. And you know what? You don't need to do any of it. All you have to do, you don't have to be spectacular. You don't have to buy some new fat burner. You don't have to do 45 minutes of cardio every day. You don't have to lift every day. You have to embrace being consistent. And whatever that might mean to you, and you have to be consistent with just being a little bit better than you were the day before. If you're consuming tons of bread and tons of pasta and tons of soda, you really don't have to go on a ketogenic diet. You don't have to go on a no-carb diet. But what you have to do is reevaluate, how is that food helping you get to your goal right now? What is something that's going to be more manageable? Because if we're going to ever get to our goal, we need to have longevity. We need to have a period of time that we can take to get to that destination, because it's going to take time. So hopefully you guys are understanding all this. When I say step by step ferociously, when I say gradum ferociter, all these things are factored in there. If you could picture me trying to take a step forward, but me pausing almost every time I'm about to take a step, that's what happens in my head. I have the same stutter steps that you guys do. I run into the same hurdles that you guys do. But when I get locked in, it's when I start telling myself, you know what, you crazy bastard? You're going to wake up at 3:30 a.m. and there is absolutely nothing else to do at that hour than to get your ass to the gym and to start training. And we can't use, oh, I'm going to hang out with my kids. We can't use that as an excuse. That is a wonderful excuse for missing the gym, make no mistake about it. But your kids are not up at 3:30. I have kids. They sleep at least until 10 on the weekend. In the summer, sometimes they sleep even longer. So don't allow yourself to keep cock blocking yourself all day long. Don't allow yourself to be in the way of yourself. And that was, I mean, I already know a lot of these things. I've seen a lot of these things firsthand, but I think that's what guys like Andrew, who is our podcast engineer over there, that's what guys like Chris Griffin, that's what Jessica Smith, that's Smokey. I think all of us are starting to understand that more and more and more each day. And when we get around these wonderful people that we consider to be great, that's the trait that they have. The trait is they're consistently and constantly consistent, and they don't break and they don't bend. Hey man, want a cookie? No man, that's okay. These guys are so healthy and so strict, they won't even eat a fucking Quest bar. I went out of my way to make sure that every time that people came over, that we had food. They wouldn't even eat the prepared food that we had because they brought their own prepared shit that they know how it was cooked. And so it was really crazy to see that level of dedication.
That was a big dish of Quest bars, by the way.
Oh yeah. Oh, a lot of those got eaten too. The Quest bars and the
The
Quest cookies.
chips, the
Mm.
like the nacho cheese chips, those
Yeah,
are incredible.
those things are outstanding.
I'm glad we don't have a ton of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those are too good. Andrew and I, a little bit before the show started, we were talking about change and how hard it is to truly change. And I think that we have we have fake changes. We think that, I mean, people say some wild. I've heard people say some wild things. I've heard people say, and this one just sounds too funny to even say out loud. I've heard people say, "Oh, I think our relationship's going to get better when we have kids."
Ugh.
It's like, what happened? What'd you just say?
Yeah.
Once you work on, work on the relationship before, there's none of these things. Having a kid is very life altering situation to have happen, but it still might not change you as a person unless you're physically working on changing yourself. Andrew was mentioning, yeah, you can change your house, you can change your car. Look, you could change your clothes, right?
Hmm.
But it's almost like a Clark Kent disguise. It's like, Andrew, I still know that's you. You took your glasses off, dude, and stuck your chest out a little further.
Yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, you can change your clothes, but if you never work out, you're still gonna look skinny.
Yeah, right.
I've been trying to find workarounds, and I still look skinny.
Yeah,
So
you can throw on as many hoodies as you want. It's not gonna work.
yeah.
But to really change, you're gonna have to change your mind, and your spirit is gonna have. You're gonna have to figure out ways. How do I get locked in? How do I get dedicated to something? How do I, because motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. Sometimes it comes and you're like, whoa, like I feel awesome. And when those moments happen, then whatever you're motivated or moved to do, you should go do it. Figure out a way within the next 20 minutes to go do it, because it's going to leave.
Yeah.
It's going to be there and you're going to be pumped, and then some shitty going to happen, and it's going to be gone. But the dedication side of it, if you can get yourself into a routine, you can teach yourself discipline. When you start to hit your markers on these disciplines, then you get stronger. Your willpower becomes stronger. And somebody with a strong willpower, I think, ends up becoming an incredibly strong person, and a person that you need to kind of watch out for, because that person can start to achieve all kinds of things that you never thought were possible. If you look up some of the stuff Conor McGregor says on YouTube. I don't know if anybody's ever seen. I don't remember if it was a documentary on him or what it was, but I saw clips of Conor McGregor when he was young, and he was talking about, I'm going to become the greatest UFC fighter ever. He said all these crazy things about winning championships and doing all these things, and when he said them with such conviction. He changed his mind somewhere. He made up. Maybe he didn't change it. Maybe he's always been that way. He made up his mind. Think about that term. You must have made up your mind about that. That's what happened. You made it up. Like you made up your mind. Like, think about how crazy that sounds. Like 4 months from now, when you guys see Andrew and he's all jacked and he's shredded, you'd be like, man, he must have changed his mind towards how he was lifting, how he was bringing the intensity each workout. He must have changed his mind about how he was going to diet. And that's a lot of the stuff you've been doing lately, right?
Yeah. And in 4 months from now, I mean, yeah, it's not gonna be. It's if it happens, it's not gonna be me exactly doing what I'm doing right now by saying if it happens. I have to right now say that yeah, in 4 months from now, I will be jacked. I will be shredded. I will be in the best shape of my life. I have to make my mind up right now, though. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and you
Like,
have to like prep for it. And I think when you start to think about these things a little bit more long range and long term, um, it can sometimes be like overwhelming, overpowering.
yeah, I think
Like,
that's
oh,
where, yeah, that's where people get caught up. When
yeah,
you're saying like, I do want to lose weight, whatever, blah blah blah. But it's like, oh well, I'm so far on this end of the spectrum. It's gonna take me forever to get to the other side.
yeah.
But if you consistently do it, like you're saying, it's like, well, shit, you're gonna get there.
Well, look, you just deadlifted what, 265?
Yeah,
yesterday. If you said to yourself, you know what, sometime in 2000, like you could say, you know what, I'm not even going to stress about it, but sometime between now and 2020, I'm going to deadlift 3 plates.
Yeah.
It's not it's not being a pussy putting so much time associated with it. What it is it's smart. Is because you know that you have multiple goals.
Yeah.
You have a daughter, you have a significant other, you have your work, you have a lot of other things going on. And there's going to be times where you're like, oh, I want to be bigger. And there's going to be times where you're like, I want to be shredded.
Yeah.
I want to be leaner.
Yeah.
You're going to go through all those things, and so you have to kind of account for it. It was something that people, I think, also fail to realize is that you can change on a daily basis. You talked about preparing your mind for 4 months down the road. Well, start to prepare your mind for the workout that we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that's already playing through my head. My wife said, "Hey, do you want to go to Makuni tonight? That's a sushi restaurant in Davis." And I said, "Yeah." I said, let's go at 6 because I gotta. From that, I'll have to get back home, and I gotta kind of do my night ritual routine,
Mm-hmm.
and I gotta be in bed by like 8:30 to really make that work the
Yeah.
right way. Otherwise, 6 o'clock's gonna kind of suffer. And I don't want to be in here squatting with you guys, being grumpy, being in a shit mood, or even just not feel right. I'd rather have it be more optimal. So
Yeah.
just to make it more optimal, just go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And then I know it's more so now because you are, paying attention to everything that you're putting in your body, but
Right.
how much emphasis are you supposed to be putting on the food you're going to be eating tomorrow? Like not many people are thinking about that when it comes to whether it is like I have to
It's
do
huge.
this at work. Nobody's saying I have to do this at work and I got to eat this meal by this time. So that means I got to prep that today before I get home at 7 so I can go to bed at 8. Like there's a lot of steps involved.
If you listen to this show and you claim that you want to get stronger and you're not thinking about your food multiple steps ahead of where you're actually at for the day, then you are a fucking liar. That you are not dedicated to the game the way you need to be. And that's totally fine, but you need to admit that. Are you on a scale of 1 to 10, are you just going at it at the 7.5? And are you comfortable with that? Because that again, that could be totally fine because the 7.5 might get you eking along, and it might give you enough of a social life to where you still feel good about yourself. Because if you're at a 10, that's Michael Hearn, right? and the 10 is going to put you in some compromising positions where you might lose friends, you might lose out on some relationships, and it could be a lonely spot. But what does everybody always say when you ask them about their goal? You ask them about like what it is they're trying to do. They'll always be like, "Man, I tried everything." And you're like, "You tried everything?" Like there's
a lot.
Mathematically, it's impossible. Like there's not enough time for you to have tried everything, and so it's irrational to say something like that. But yeah, with your food, right now, I had 4 meals. I had a protein shake in the morning, so it's 5 total feedings, I guess you'd call it.
Mm-hmm.
The next meal will be at like 6:30 probably. And I'll probably eat one more time after that. But those are all the things that, like, on my drive home, I already have food prepared in the fridge. So if I need something, I can just pop it out. But you should always be thinking a couple steps ahead. When you have a really hard training session and you get home from the gym, you need to think about how many meals am I going to get in. Like, you might have to eat a little extra. There's all kinds of different strategies you can try to utilize. Maybe the next morning you're not going to eat because you have to be, somewhere super early or whatever it might be, or you got to train super early and just rather do it fasted. And so maybe you eat a little extra, for your last meal.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different strategies that can go into all this stuff, but you're going to have to think about where that energy is going to come from. And what bodybuilding has taught me is just just take your time. Take your time to get your shit done that you need to get done. Do it the right way, rather than being like, ah, fuck it, I'll just train, and I'm on an empty stomach. No, don't do that, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. Everything you keep hearing these speeches about sleep, and it goes back and forth. You go on YouTube, and people are talking about not sleeping. People that sleep are broke, right? Uh, you sleep when you're dead. Is another approach, right? I mean, you guys heard me talking about waking up early and some of these things, but in order to wake up early, one must go to bed early, right? I mean, there's no other way around it. Do you need 8 hours every day? I don't know. I know there's a lot of research and a lot of evidence. If you listen to the podcast that Joe Rogan did with the sleep doctor, Michael Walker, I think his name was, Matt Walker.
Matthew Walker, I think.
Matthew Walker, there we go. If you haven't listened to that, that's an amazing podcast. But if you're not doing half the shit that guy talks about on the show, then you're half-assing your lifting, you're half-assing your fitness. I didn't agree with everything he said, because I've had great results myself without having to sleep 8 hours or 9 hours. Sometimes 8 hours feels like it's too much for me sometimes. But what's undeniable is that all humans need a certain amount of rest, right? So everything stems from the sleep. After that, everything comes from the food. So you got sleep is number one. You got food, and let's just throw water in there too. I mean, you need your hydration. But sleep, water, and food, whatever, food and water, I would just say, are both second. But when it comes to all this stuff, without the food, you're not going to have the energy that you need to get through the workouts the right way. Without the sleep, you're not even going to utilize the food the way that you should. There's evidence that shows that when you have a lack of sleep, that you're like pre-diabetic for the day. Your body is not even responding in the same fashion to the carbohydrates that it normally would. You're like insulin resistant for the day because you didn't get the proper amount of sleep. And so the sleep and the food are the biggest points of training, and then everything else will kind of stem from there. Your actual training method, your actual training system, the exact movements that you do, whether you're getting help from Chad Wesley Smith or Hayden Bowe or whoever. There's a lot of great people out there, but they're going to tell you the same thing. If you're not resting and you're not eating, you're not planning out the food that you're going to get, you can't be out there winging it. It just doesn't make any sense. I think most of us care too much about training to have it just be something that we wing. Think about when you do your squats. You have a specific set of shoes. So that means the night before, here at Super Training, we can just leave our shit all over the place, so it's kind of nice. But that means the night before, you're switching out whatever shoes you normally wear, or you're putting your squat shoes in your gym bag. You're like, oh, well, I'm going to need my belt, and I might do stiff leg deadlifts. I might need my straps, right? You're preparing for all these things, and you have to prepare. More importantly than the belt, and more importantly than the shoes that you wear, is your food. You don't have to eat like a bird, and your nutrition doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a no-carb diet. You don't have to be in a caloric deficit. But you have to have fuel. You have to have food. You have to think of food sources. The reason why bodybuilders don't choose to do protein bars and protein shakes all that often, if ever really, is because it takes up space. So they don't have time. They don't have time to take up space in their stomach. They don't have time to take up real estate in their stomach for something that could be healthier, something that could help them more towards their goal. Now, bodybuilders, they have, a lot of them end up with a very lonely life. We heard Jay Cutler say on this show. Hopefully you guys are paying attention, because some of the things that are said here are really profound. I asked him if he had any regrets, and he said, yeah, he had a huge regret. He lost his first wife, and he said that he loved her, and he said it fucking sucked. How far do you want to go with this, right? Like, how far down that rabbit hole do you want to go? But those are all things that you can kind of judge for yourself as you get into it. Are you going to be such a maniac about food that you never go anywhere? It's only organic, it's only grass-fed. You saw the cow or chicken or whatever get slaughtered in front of your very eyes. That's the only stuff you're going to eat. You can go that crazy with it. You could go as crazy as being somebody that only eats raw food. There's some people that eat like raw meat. They don't cook anything. You can take that as far as you need to take it, but you can have a happy medium and you can still make an amazing amount of progress. You can still eat your protein bars. You can still have your protein shakes. But the point is you're going to have to account for, where is this fuel going to come from so I can have a good fucking workout. The workout is a much bigger component than it gets credit for, but it doesn't take precedent over the food and doesn't take precedent over the sleep, because without those two things, the training can't happen properly, and your training needs to be hard. You can't just go in and move around some weights. You can't really just go in and go through the motions. If you're new, you can do that. But if you have been training for 2 or 3 years, you're not going to be, back to what we were talking about in the beginning, you're not going to be able to really ever make substantial changes. The only way you're going to be able to make changes is by having so much consistency over a long period of time of whatever that goal is that you set out. You keep following through with that over and over and over again. Your consistency, the thoughts that are in your head, they match up with your actions, just continuously, nonstop. That's the only way you're going to be able to get change. If you just want to stay the same, then you can kind of, my favorite quote ever, keep doing what you're doing. It's the dumbest fucking saying ever. If you say it to me in person, I will stab you in the neck with a pen. Even if I don't have a pen, I'll make a fake one and stab you right in the jugular vein.
You'll make a shiv.
God damn. Keep doing what you're doing. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think people sometimes think that's good. Well, I don't want to keep getting what I'm getting. I want to keep doing better.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep making progress. And, you know, when my son and my daughter, when they were playing sports and when they were, you know, even just in life in general, I always tell them, like, you know, things are more fun when you're winning. You don't need to be a maniac. You don't need to be overly competitive. But if we're going to make shit fun, then it's so much easier and so much more fun when you're ahead, when you're winning.
Yeah.
So why even bother to fall behind, right? Why not try your best to stay ahead? Know what I'm saying?
Nah, what you mean? So, we had a couple people asking about your show and everything. We can get into that for sure, but just how are you feeling overall? Like, obviously, you're just saying you're in the best shape of your life. Everything's better when you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
But you were mentioning how like your belly button was doing something kind of weird, and yeah. So just like what's going on in the temple of Mark Bell?
I feel amazing. I feel better than I've ever felt. I'm in better shape than I've ever been. I think physically, mentally, strength-wise, the strength isn't amazing. It's not like, you know, it's not anywhere near where it used to be. But there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of that is just the overall calories are starting to come down. I think if I had more carbs in my system, I worked on being a little bit bigger, I think most of the strength would be back. I think I could easily bench over 500 pounds if I just weighed 240 or 245, which is only like 15 more pounds than what I weigh now. But in general, I feel really good. Mentally holding up really well. Physically holding up really well. There's a few things that are like weird. So, you know, as I was mentioning with Jay Cutler, there's some things where I'm so focused and honed in on this, I'm not even thinking about Andy that much, which is weird because I'm obsessed with Andy, and I'm always smooching her, I'm always grabbing her butt, and I'm still doing a lot of that, but it's not the same. It's not the same as where I was before, and I think that's just because I'm like, oh, I got to make another meal, or I got to get my supplements ready for tomorrow, or I got to get, you know, I'm just always doing something. I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity to grow up their wife as much as I do. And so I'm always doing that. But I mean, other than that little side effect, and I think that does happen very often to competitive athletes, bodybuilders in particular, where they lose some sense of their like emotion, I guess, a little bit. You become like almost a little emotionless,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not severe. It's a small thing for now, and it's also limited to a certain amount of time because the contest is at the end of the month. But I've let's see, what the hell's his name? Um, Brad, Brad, is it Brad?
Who are we talking about?
Bodybuilder.
Ben Pekulski?
Brad Rowe.
Brad
There we
Rowe.
go. Yeah, Brad Rowe. Brad Rowe told me that Brad Rowe competes all the time. He gets up on the stage and bodybuilds, multiple times a year. I think he said like last year he did like 5 or 6 shows, which is crazy. Oof. That's a crazy pace. But he said he went like 3 months and he didn't even like touch his dogs, and he just didn't even think about it. He came home from a show, he was exhausted. He had a cheat meal or two, and he just got through the doors of his house and he put all his bags down and stuff, and he just like laid on the floor. He was just like exhausted. And he was like, "Oh, this feels good just to kind of lay here." And then his dogs came over and they licked him, and he just started crying because he's like, "Fuck, man, I haven't." Mm-hmm. Because the dogs are so loyal, they don't care what they don't care. But yeah, he was just like shit, and I was like, okay, I'll watch out for that. But I'm not going to compete 5-6 times a year. Hopefully, I don't know how many times I'm going to do this. I don't want to throw out any numbers because I don't have any idea. Mm-hmm. This one's fun. It's getting me in good shape. I am worried about like a rebound afterwards, like what's going to happen. But I mean, the goal is to keep the body weight at least below 240. So if I just stay under that body weight, which is not that hard for me, I don't need to do a lot of cardio. I don't need to do crazy stuff to be under 240. Mm-hmm. But to be under 230, my body's very resistant to.
I don't think you'll have a hard time with that. You have so many people around you that are just kicking ass nonstop. You're not gonna be like, you guys keep getting better. I'll just kick back and not do what I've been doing my whole life.
Right.
Being at Gold's in the posing room, how's your posing going? Because I know that's been like the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's coming together. It's getting better. Mm-hmm. I think I still have to work on it. Mm-hmm. Just making time to do something that you don't want to do isn't easy because you're just not excited about it. It's kind of like everyone's got room for a donut type thing, but you don't have room for shit that you don't like. Mm-hmm. I don't really enjoy it, but I try to do it. Every time I come here, I try to do a little bit of it. I'm trying to do some of it in the morning and some of it at night. It's definitely getting better, but some of my mobility is shitty. Even like through my wrist, I got like shit mobility through like my wrist. So even just taking your wrist and just kind of turning it like under, which you see a lot of the bodybuilders do, my wrist just doesn't move very well. And so trying to lock my arms into certain positions, the side tricep pose, the front lat spread is probably the hardest one for me because as soon as I go to tuck my hand back into my body, then my lat will disappear because my shoulders are so internally rotated, and so it's hard for me to then externally rotate them to show off my lats while my arm is still by my side. My kids have always thought it was really funny that I can't touch my own shoulder. I mean, I actually can now if I work on it for a second, it'll actually happen. Yeah. Which I shoved in their face a few weeks ago. Nice. But a weird thing, and I don't know why, but I've been this way for a long time. If you put something really close to me, a lot of times I can't get it. I have to like move away. Like, so if this bottle is like right next to me right here, and I'll try to like, if I'm like watching TV and I'm like reclined or something, I got to like look at it and then be like, okay, I need to move over here and now I can grab it. Yeah. I don't know why I've always been...
Because they end up doing the gay pterodactyl, right?
Yeah, I end up doing the gay pterodactyl to try to... My kids, they'll put stuff close to me. They put it like right here, and I'm like, eh. Yeah. It doesn't work out so good.
You probably got like a ton of good advice being at Gold's every day for a month. Mm-hmm. Did anybody stand out as far as like a major key when it comes to bodybuilding?
Mm-hmm.
Major key.
Uh,
Yeah.
they all helped. I got a lot of help from a lot of people. I'd say O'Hearn, helped the most just because of the training sessions. The intensity, and that's going to be what I carry on the most. The posing, it's like, I don't know, 10 years from now, I'll probably forget how to do half of that stuff, but I'll never forget how to bring that amount of intensity. That was really cool, and I've always worked out hard. It's just he works out different. He's got a different technique, different methods, and he brings it each and every day. And from training with him and from getting to know him better, it's pretty cool. There's just no excuses. You never hear him complain either. You never hear him say anything about his elbows or his wrists or anything like that. He never bitches about anything. He's always there training his face off. But I got good advice from Charles Glass, Tito Raymond, Stan Efferding, and Big Will Harris, who has been a competitive bodybuilder for the last probably 30 years. Will is Will is like well versed in like posing and stuff. If anyone's ever seen him on stage, he's got the ability to make himself look awesome. He's got a shitload of muscle, so it's not hard for him to look awesome. But when he was showing me stuff, it would just kind of baffle me because he's big, but then he would get in a position and he'd flex, and it would just be like, holy shit. He would just get absolutely enormous. So that was cool to have him. And then plus he's a longtime friend of mine. I've known him for, 25 plus years. Will and I's story goes back a long ways. One of my first training partners when I moved to the area. We trained together at Gold's Gym, and then he's also the one who, read between the lines, turned me on to the dark side. So that was my first introduction to any of that stuff.
Tanning beds.
And he talks about it all the time, and we used to talk about it all the time because we would talk about the NWO, the New World Order in wrestling in the WCW days.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the dark side because like Star Wars and stuff, and Will would be like, I need to get you over to the dark side. I need to get you over to the dark side. He'd say it over and over again, and eventually I went over to the dark side.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Little random tidbit. That was at about like 21 years old. So I did like a cycle. I didn't really even know what I was doing. Like I knew what it was. I didn't know what I was doing. And I went to take like a shot, and I like totally jacked myself up. And I told Will, I was like, I don't know what I did, but I kind of butchered myself, and I was like, now I got this like lump, and it hurt for like a week and a half or some shit like that. It was terrible. And then so he was like, well, he goes, maybe you just try to drink it. There's certain ones like Winstrol, which is can sometimes come as a water-based thing. You can drink it. And I was like, all right, well, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? And then I found out why I didn't tell me in the first place. It's like really impossible to try to drink it. It was pretty crazy. I mean, I tried a bunch of different stuff, tried to put it in some different things.
Yeah.
And eventually I kind of figured it out. But then I didn't do anything for about 5 or 6 years after that. It wasn't anything like I didn't care one way or the other about it, but it got me in shape, got me a little stronger, made me feel a little bit better. But I mean, just not feel better, but like just feel better about my physique and stuff like that. But it didn't really, I didn't feel like it really had that much of an impact. And at the time, I just didn't have money either. So I was like, yeah, I don't need it. And then it wasn't until I went to West Side where I started to mess around with stuff again.
Yeah. We got to have a whole episode about the dark side.
The steroid episode.
Yeah. So that's coming for the people who are asking a couple of questions here and there. Yeah, it's a hot topic. Training at 4 a.m. at Gold's, just if you can give a quick rundown on what that's like for people listening.
It's amazing. You get there at 3:45 or 3:50 in the morning, Doors aren't open yet, but
Mhm.
it's. I like getting there before the doors open. I like being one of the first
Yeah,
to get through the doors.
yeah, and not to cut you off, it's almost eerie. So at the hotel I was staying at when I was down there with you, it at 4 a.m. it was 6 minutes away. At like 10 a.m. it was like 45 minutes away. There's a weird quietness to like sitting or standing out there in the parking lot in front of Gold's, waiting for the door to unlock, because you can kind of see people like wandering in like zombies. They're just
Yeah.
like they're
There's like 30 people out there though.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, but it's all
and it's the
real,
same people.
and it's quiet though. Like
Mhm.
it's like it's peaceful actually,
Yeah.
and it's like, but in a couple hours it looks like a totally different location.
Oh, the gym is insane. The gym looks like a fucking like nightclub on crack. When it's 7 a.m. rather than 4 a.m. But
Right.
I find this really weird, and people will probably disagree with me, but like I think when you wake up that early in the morning, you wake up at like there's something strange about waking up almost before like 5 o'clock,
Mhm.
and there's something that's quite different waking up more at like 7 or 8 o'clock. To me, it's maybe it's because like the sleep cycles or whatever, but it's almost easier for me to wake up really really early than it is for me to try to get somewhere at 9. I'm always going to be late. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But if I need to be somewhere at like 4 in the morning, I'll be on time every time. I think a lot of it has to do with I like the fact that no one else is around. I like that the pace is slower. Like I just kind of move slow in general. Just I take a long time. I'm able to get a lot of stuff done every day, but I just take a long ass time. I take a long ass time to eat. I take a long ass time to leave my house. I probably take like 45 minutes to leave my house. That's not including like taking a shower and changing and doing all those things. It just takes me like, to eat and to like make sure I have everything I need for the day. It just takes me fucking forever. And I've always been that way. So
Mhm.
I'm always kind of like slow, but it's kind of nice in the morning. There's nobody else around. There's no distractions. Nobody's texting me or anything at that hour.
Right.
I'm texting other people because I like to be annoying, usually Jessica. But yeah, going to Gold's Gym at that hour is special. And Los Angeles is a beautiful place. Super early in the morning. There's no one around. There's something cool about kicking ass. Like you get through an entire workout, and then we'll walk down to Bulletproof Coffee, and they didn't
Yeah.
even open quite yet.
Yeah.
They just opened. They opened up at 6.
Yeah.
It's really cool feeling to get like an hour of cardio done, an hour and a half of training. It's not even 8 a.m. yet. Sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 meals by the time, I guess by noon I'd have like 4 or 5 meals sometimes. Depends on the day.
Yeah. Why is it so sweaty in there when nobody even trains yet? Like it's like 4:01 a.m. and it's already gross.
Yeah, it smells like ass in there. They don't have air conditioning, and it's not too far from the beach, and so it's just it's really humid.
Yeah.
You get some major swamp ass going in that place. That's for sure.
Yeah. So after a month being down there training, what's your weight looking like right now?
I'm consistently around 230. The
Hmm.
lightest I've been is 227. I'm not really that worried about the weight. I think like my amount of water keeps kind of fluctuating, so I'm not sure. Um, I just don't think it matters that much. But yeah, I've been around 230 pounds. I think Hani has been kind of worried about it here and there, but I keep getting leaner,
Hmm.
and I notice like a new cut or new vein or new something pretty much daily. I also think too your body gets pretty resistant to it, and I think what'll happen is as I come towards the end, I think some of the stuff tapers off. I'm not sure how it even works, but I think you work out a little bit less, and some of the cardio might be backed off. Like the intensity of everything comes down, and I think at that time my body will kind of recover, and I think that's probably when it'll be easy to flush some of the water out. And I think on stage I'll probably be 220 or 215 or something like that.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was going to see where you wanted to end up, but when was the last time you weighed that much?
Last time I weighed even this much was
7th grade.
How
was
old
a
would you
guess
be in
by
7th
Jessica.
grade? 14? No.
13.
Ninth. I
So,
mean, yeah. I mean, ninth grade. I
oh,
was
9th grade.
240 pounds when I was 16 years old.
Hmm.
So whatever the math is on that, I think as an adult, as I started lifting and getting in better shape, and when I first moved to Los Angeles and first started training at Gold's Gym, I was probably between 210 and 220 all the time,
Hmm.
and that's how a lot of those people remembered me. Even though I mean, they've seen me in between,
Yeah.
and they'd just be like, "What the fuck? Why are you so fat?" I don't think they understood some of the powerlifting stuff for a long time. But it was amazing going back there. Amazing, absolutely amazing. A lot of these people that I know and people I'm friends with, they've been trainers in there for a really long time, or they've been strength coaches, and it's cool to go back and then talk to them. When I was in there, I was a kid, and now when I go back in there, they'll ask all kinds of questions. They'll be like, "Dude, like, you're killing it." A lot of these guys, they're not like quote unquote somebody in the fitness industry. They made their mark as a trainer, and they do really well doing all that. But I think a lot of them are just like impressed. They're impressed with the work. They're impressed with what we've done here at Slingshot, what we've done here at Super Training, and they admire it. They're like, "Fuck, man, killing it, man. It's
Yeah.
really cool."
Yeah. I got to get you out of here. Is there anything else on your mind?
No. Well, I just wanted to talk about like all the different people that we had. So we had
Mm-hmm.
about 5,000 people come through the doors while we're in Malibu, and contestant number one that came through the door was Mark Fitzgerald, who's the Anaheim Ducks strength and conditioning coach.
Mm-hmm.
From there, we ended up with Paul
Dig,
Degleder, and Paul. He does Shark Week, which is fitting because Paul was mauled by a shark. He was almost eaten alive by a shark, and he had a really inspiring story. He was a former military out in Australia, and he now gives like motivational speeches and shit like that. And he was just an awesome guy. And I met him at Gold's. He was out there doing farmers carries, and in between that, he was deadlifting. Who does that? Who supersets deadlifts with farmers carries?
Ugh.
But he's doing that with a hook. He's got a fucking hook on his arm.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. And let's see, I'm trying to remember all the different names. Then we had Justin Lovato on the podcast, and we had his wife as well,
Stephanie Lovato.
Stephanie Lovato. Those two were dynamic together.
Yeah.
That was a really fun podcast to do. And, I want to start doing more of that. I want to start doing more couples podcasts because, a lot of this stuff it's tough to talk about all these different things that are going on. It's hard to, it's hard to communicate with people about how difficult it can be to keep a relationship the way it needs to be kept, to run a business and to lift and to have your fitness be a priority, but have your kids be a priority. It's hard to figure it all out. And there's so many people that are listening that are, sometimes it could be a sentence you say or one word that you say, and it could really help change their lives and help them maybe start to employ some of the things that you mentioned in the podcast,
Yeah. So after them, we had
Big Doug.
Yeah, Doug Frucci, dude. That guy was a savage. I don't know. I think his show has come and gone by now. I don't know.
He said he finished 8th place.
Okay.
He said he was really pumped about his physique, and he said he just has more stuff to work on. So he said he was happy. He was bigger. He was in better shape than he has been. So he's like, that's all I can do is just try to keep getting better. So that was really cool.
Yeah. And then you guys did some movie stuff with Thomas DeLauer. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And then on the podcast though, we had Tate Fletcher. He crushed it.
Tate Fletcher was awesome. He's always awesome. He's with Caveman Coffee. And if you don't know Tate Fletcher, check out some of his stuff. And Thomas DeLauer too. I mean, check his shit out. If you want to know keto stuff, Thomas is the guy. Go on YouTube. Just type in his name. It's Thomas, and then it's DELEUR. Thomas Delore, and he just has fantastic information. Tate Fletcher revealed some really cool stuff, and we ended up with a lot of that
Yeah.
on this show. We ended up with the people that were giving us all kinds of goodies,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of reveals. He talked about how he dealt with addiction and how he dealt with, just kind of being a shitty person for a long period of his life,
Yeah.
and how he's able to change it.
And then he just scorched everybody, talking about how everybody wants to make money. I put that on the Power Project Instagram, and it's been shared I don't know how many times.
That'd be a good cartoon for our boy Zach to mess with.
Well, you destroying a couch and a recliner due to getting sick. I was thinking maybe that might be the next one, but
I forgot about that couch that I shat.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that might be the next cartoon. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Damn. So you did a couple things in Malibu, huh? So the next day you were hanging out with Peter Itea.
Yeah, he was amazing. We did a podcast with him as well as more movie stuff. And Peter Itea is kind of the go-to researcher when it comes to not so much just the keto diet, but more so like longevity. Longevity is kind of his main thing. It's called autophagy. Basically, your the older cells in your body dying off, and your body creating new cells, which just happens. Period. That's the way the human body works. But then it can also be accelerated through things like intermittent fasting, and they're trying to see like what impact does that have on your overall health, and is it something that we really need to even fucking worry about? But yeah, he was awesome. He also had a boxing background, and he also is a fan of like the slingshot, and he wants to come up to the gym sometimes. So all that was really cool.
That'd be great. You had Aaron Williamson on the podcast. That was another incredible episode. Highly recommend that.
Yeah, all these guys had great stories. Like I said, they ended up sharing stuff with us that like we were like, whoa, pretty deep shit.
Yes. If you guys haven't listened to it, please go back and check it out. But he was telling a story about he was at the gym. He said goodbye to one of his best friends, and as he's leaving the gym gets hit with a rocket, and his buddy dies. He tells a story, straight faced, everything. Mark takes a break, goes to the bathroom, and I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like, because you guys were just talking about PTSD and whatnot. So I was like, how soon were you able to even go back to a gym to, before you got comfortable? And he's like, I was in the gym the very next morning. He was like, if it wasn't for the gym, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This is so intense. Like,
yeah, because he was stationed in like wherever, Afghanistan or whatever.
Yeah. And then,
and that same night, I ended up, some of these days were crazy. I'm getting to the gym at 4.
Yeah.
And then with Aaron, this was at 10 o'clock. Then at 6 p.m., I was with Ron Penna. And then at 9 o'clock, my brother and I went to see Joe Rogan, which was, Joe Rogan's always fucking amazing. We just went to see him do some stand-up, and that was phenomenal.
That's the cool
thing.
The
next day, I got to hang out with one of my buddies, my homie, Mr. Barkwan.
Oh, yeah.
And his little chubby baby. That's a cute little baby he's got going on. And then I'm forgetting her last name, but Victoria from Quest, got to have a meeting with her. They're having a big Keto Quest convention thingy going on in January in Long Beach. That sounds really interesting. Sounds like a lot of fun. The next day, I was supposed to have Mr. O'Hearn on, and he stood us up. That son of a bitch. And that was something that we had to actually talk through the next day in the gym. When I got to the gym, I thought, okay, I'm going to show up at the gym, and he'll probably start out by saying, hey, sorry about yesterday. I fucked up. And I'd probably be like, dude, who cares? Whatever. Give him a big hug and lift. Yeah. But he didn't. And so I was like, you know what? That really sucks. Because we had the whole team there. We had everybody prepared. We have certain things mapped out very certain way, very specific way. Because we're going to do movie stuff with them, and we're also going to do podcast stuff with them. And then he called like an hour after he was supposed to be there. and like left me a voicemail about how I wasn't going to be able to make it that day. And so that was really frustrating. So after we got done training that day, I had to just let him know what's up. And it's not always easy to do that stuff, but you gotta call people out. You really do. You really need to tell people flat out. You just say, hey, however you feel. You just gotta tell them however you feel. And I said, you know what, man? I said yesterday, I said that sucked what you did to me and my team. And he was like, kind of like, huh? And I said, yeah, man. I said it kind of hurt my feelings, and I said it's really disappointing. And I said, you really let yourself down. Like I put it on him. It's like you really let
Damn.
yourself down. I said you painted a really bad picture of yourself. I was like, I want these guys to know you the way that I know you, and now they think you're an asshole because you didn't show up. I was like, it's just a weird, it's a weird thing. Now I got to try to explain it to him and everything. And he understood, and he just took full responsibility, which is kind of the only thing you can do in that situation. What else are you gonna do for somebody other than tell
Yeah.
them you're sorry, right? So he just said, "Hey, man, that's all on me. My bad. It won't happen again." And so, but then later, he texted me, and his girlfriend texted me, and they said, "You know what? They're like, they both said, we really needed that. Like, thank you.
Wow.
Because we sometimes take things like kind of lightly, and we need to recognize that it's important. These things are important. If they weren't important, then we just shouldn't schedule them at all.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was cool. We had Mike Catherwood on the show. He's on Access Hollywood. I believe that's the name of the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's a host on there, and he's become a good friend. He's a funny ass dude. He'll come up to Super Training and throw down with us. We'll have a good time with him.
That would be cool.
He's got all kinds of crazy stories. He's
Yeah.
hanging with all kinds of different celebrities. I mean, he's interviewed Arnold. He's interviewed the Kardashians. I mean,
He's all
it's
over
just-
the place.
it's just crazy. But yeah, and his story, is that one played already, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's available.
People really need to listen to that one. I mean, a lot of these guys have had drug or alcohol addictions, but some people are turned off by that, and some people want to listen to it because they need help. But if you're turned off by it, you should tune in because it's interesting to hear how these people get out of these situations. And maybe you don't have an addiction to drugs or alcohol, but maybe you have an addiction to food, or maybe there's something that you're doing that you don't want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You can still take the information that they share with you, and you can still pull yourself out of some of these dark spots. We all go through dark spots. Fat Little Smokey came in the next day, and we got through some bicep training, some biceps and triceps. I put Smokey through the whole thing. I put him through the whole ordeal. He had oatmeal with me. He had the egg whites with me.
He probably loved
We
it.
woke up at 2:45 in the morning.
Maybe
No, he
not
was a
that.
pussy. He didn't even eat it all.
Really?
He was a baby.
Come on.
Yeah, he's a bitch. We hit up the gym and did some arms, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin came rolling through, and it's always amazing hanging out with him. He's just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stone Cold ended up calling me the next day, and he's like, "I got to get you over here. I got to get you over to my house for you to be on my podcast." I was like, "I'm there. All right, enough said." The day after that, we ended up doing some stuff with my buddy the Rhino, Stan the Rhino Efforting. He's always amazing. I think that podcast might have went up today.
Yeah.
After that, we had Dr. Sean Baker on, the carnivore diet man. And we just kept kind of rolling through. Jay Ferrugia, I think I'm saying that the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Jay is somebody that I've known for 15 years, or 20 years, but never actually met. So it was the first time meeting him. It was really kind of weird. We're like, I can't even believe that we never met before. This is strange. It seems like we've met, but we haven't. The day after that, I was on Stone Cold's podcast on the 21st, and we had Tito Raymond over on the 22nd. That was a lot of fun for me and my wife because Tito Raymond has a really, really great family. He brought his wife. He brought his kids.
Oh, that's cool.
His kids played with my kids, and that was the thing. That was a lot of fun. They have two older boys, or one was like a teenager, and I think Quinn thought, like, we're not going to have fun with these guys, but they ended up playing the whole time and doing puzzles and paintings and drawings, and they had Quinn's always super resistant. I told you that. She's super resistant to anybody that comes, I'm not going to play with them.
Yeah.
And then she always does. She's a teddy bear. But Tito Raymond is also married to Amy Fodley, who is extremely hot. And to say that I haven't been excited by her photos in the past would be a lie, because when she was really popular, I was probably about 16, and she's on the cover of a lot of magazines. So a lot of stuck together pages. Sorry, Tito. Sorry about that, but hey, man, I just gotta say it. I gotta say it. You know, that's the way it goes. Awesome family. Those are some really, really good people. Next day was just a big old training day. I don't think I had anybody on the poop cast. Then Smokey and I on the 24th and 25th rolled out to this outdoor retailer show where we're looking to improve and expand upon our apparel. The next day I had a photo shoot with Per Burnell, and that was amazing. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Had you out there as well, and the photo shoot was great just because he's persistent. He just is on you the whole time, and he gives you good energy. Mm-hmm. And we were able to get the whole family involved too. We got a lot of good shots of me and my kids, my nieces and nephews, and whoever the hell else was there. Maybe my nephews weren't there. No, my nephews weren't there, but just me and my niece Piper. Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of really cool pictures of me and my wife. Andy started getting a little carried away, and Quinn was like, "What's going on out here?"
The look on Quinn's face when she came out to the beach. And
yeah. Andy's like straddling me. Andy's like, "Oh, this is fun." And then Quinn comes walking around the corner.
Yeah. And you're like, and that's how we had our third kid.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so that night, we also celebrated Andy's birthday. Her birthday was actually the next day, but we had kind of family stuff planned already. We were going to see Mission Impossible, and she's a huge Tom Cruise fan. So that night I had a private chef, my buddy Gavin. Shout out to my buddy Gavin, who's got Beardy Boys Inc., who makes amazing pecan butter. You should check that shit out because it's just the flavor is ridiculous.
It's
he
incredible.
Has just pecans, salt, and honey. It's fucking amazing. The next day we celebrated the wifey's birthday, and we started to kind of wind things down. But we had Mike Ryan come into town, or we had Mike Ryan on the podcast. You guys have seen him before. He's been a longtime friend. He's trained some of the biggest names in Hollywood, including The Rock. And then we had Ryan Soper come in from Super Training, and had to put him through the ringer. He ate the oatmeal. He ate the egg whites. He ate it all. He wasn't a pussy like Smokey was.
Yeah, he's a savage.
And we had an insane workout. We did a leg workout, and Ryan ended up handling the same amount of weight as O'Hearn did on the leg press, but just paid a really awful price for it. 'Cause he got, I mean, he did not look good after that. He was dying. O'Hearn obviously did a lot more reps and did them a lot cleaner because he's savage, but that was awesome.
Hell yeah, way to go, Ryan.
And then the way to go out with a bang was I got another 4 a.m. training session in, and then we had the Mountain on the podcast, Hap Thor Bjornsson, the world's strongest man, and then a little while after that we had Mr. Mike O'Hearn on the podcast.
Nice.
After that, it was a long-ass drive back here to Sacramento, and that's all I got to say. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.